What is going week of NFL picks? And we're officially coming down to the end. It is of the NFL regular season. Final few weeks of NFL picks. Um, going by so fast like we do every year, but it's the state that we're in. It happens every time. That means we're going to have a lot of football, not just the NFL, college football playoffs, bowl games, you name it, all that good stuff. So just cherish it while you have it. Plenty of teams still fighting for playoff position. Fighting to be in the playoffs. Still some division battles that need to be sorted out. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Results last week went 11-5 overall record under 32-92. Lock of the week 14-1, upset of the week 1-14. So the usual, no real changes there. Thursday night football so far to be Cleveland and Cincinnati, the Browns and Bengals. So kind of am glad that got flex. The 9-5 Broncos, who have really been a shocker team, virtually locked in to go to the playoffs with Sean Payton and Bo Nix as a rookie. Heading to SoFi to take on the Chargers team that has lost a few games in a row, actually has lost 3 out of their last 4, and is really looking to bounce back in, a very much a must-win spot, a spot where I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this game. Now, I really feel like you got to look at Denver has obviously been hot. You got to give credit to them where credit is due. Denver has, I think, since that debacle in Kansas City, I want to say they're riding a 4-game win streak, which is obviously very impressive. But the Chargers' backs are against the walls. They are in a must-win position. And I really feel like this is one of those weeks. It's a short week. Harbaugh, Herbert, more veteran experience all around. I feel like you got to give this to the Chargers in a close one. But I do feel like you ultimately got to give this to the Chargers to pull out and, maintain their positioning in that playoff race against Denver. Really for seeding. That's, I guess, in the AFC, maybe the 5th seed. It all depends. There's still a lot of things that need to be worked out. But battle for playoff positioning, I'm going to give it to the Chargers here. Saturday, we have 1 o'clock game in Arrowhead. The Houston Texans locked up the AFC South. They have punched their ticket to the playoffs. Almost, you would say, virtually locked into that 4th seed. Obviously, nothing, set in stone yet as, officially. But you would pretty much say Houston is locked in to that 4th seed as it is. As they head to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs team. And the big question about the Chiefs is going to be the health of Patrick Mahomes. And is Mahomes going to start on a short week? Because not only do they have this game just 4 days later, so there's a lot of balancing you need to do. Obviously, you want Mahomes 100% for January. But I just still get a feeling, regardless, even if it is Carson Wentz at quarterback, I feel like this is the Chiefs' game to win. I know, Houston has been winning games, but I don't feel like they're doing it in the impressive manner or the galvanizing way that they did to close out last year. I really feel like there's still a lot to be desired with this Texans go ahead and suffer a loss to the Chiefs. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this to Kansas City. Second Saturday game, 4:30 on Fox. This is very interesting when you think about it. The Steelers and the Ravens on Fox from M&T Bank Stadium. Pittsburgh did take the first meeting in Acrisure Stadium. Baltimore definitely. You look at Baltimore's record, and I just say they just feel like they're so better than their record, but they've lost some of those games. You just look at it and you say they shouldn't have lost. Pittsburgh losing to Philadelphia. Ultimately, I feel like you got to give this to the Ravens here. It feels like a game that it just feels like a game that they're meant to win. And they're going to make this AFC North interesting the final few weeks. Not necessarily saying they're going to outright win it, but it feels like it's going to be interesting. It feels like it's going to definitely come down to the wire. And I feel like Baltimore is set up to get a win. As Pittsburgh, really, I do think is going to start coming down to earth a little bit. So I'm going to pick Baltimore. Heading into our Sunday slate, and first game we got here, obviously, the Falcons survived on Monday, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. The Falcons survived on Monday night. They did not win. They survived, but their season is alive for one more week. And they come home to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Going to be wearing the red helmet, so that's definitely exciting to see. And I will say, as ugly as that win was and very dissatisfying it was, I will still take it over a loss. I will take it any day of the week over a loss to keep our season alive. We just had to win a game. And honestly, even though it was probably in the most unimpressive fashion that a game could be won in, we had to do what we had to do. It's not impressive. There's a lot of things I'm unhappy with, but I'm happy most of all that we did get the win, as ugly as it is, and it does feel like we survived. But anyways, obviously I'm going to talk about this game later in the week. A Giants team that you would probably say is in the war, ironically. It does feel like the Falcons are set up to get another win. And I feel like that's the reality. When you face these bad teams, you're going to get these wins. And whatever it means, I don't know. But it does feel like the Falcons, I'm going to pick them to win. It's obviously not a guaranteed win by any stretch of imagination. You still got to go out and play the game. But I will say, ultimately, I feel like the Falcons, I just feel like, it's got to happen. Anything can happen now. Anything can happen. But I do feel like the Falcons win. I'll talk about it more later in the week. Next game, battle in the NFC North. The 12-2 Lions told me real crazy on this, kind of a little bit of a spoiler. Detroit, I obviously think you would look at as the clear favorite in this game. People will look at Detroit and probably say that game that they're going to win, and that probably is the smart pick. But when you just look at all up in that game versus Buffalo, it does feel like in many ways they finally lost some of that mystique. And for as awful as I think the Bears are, lurk around and get a win late in the year. I do this a lot with these upsets, but I feel like eventually, it's gonna happen. You're gonna see a big upset in the NFL that really shakes up the playoff picture. And this, I very well think, could be it, where Chicago takes down Detroit when they're really not expecting it, coming off the big game versus Buffalo. And obviously they're dealing with the injuries. David Montgomery is a big loss for them. So I'm ultimately going to pick the Bears to win. Caleb, they have all that talent, and with that defense that's so injured for Detroit, you got to keep all those things in mind. So I am ultimately going to go ahead, and I'm going to pick the Bears to win. Next game here. Very slim playoff hopes alive at the 3-11 Panthers. Now, this is another one that, with even though Carolina did not play well last week, Carolina has historically done very well against Arizona. And ultimately, I get the feeling that this is going to be one of those weeks Carolina finally puts it together and gets another win, closes out. And I'm going to give it to them right here. I feel like Arizona, while they still have things to work on, I just feel like this is a big upset spot for them too. I feel like Carolina's going to come out. They're going to, really want to build some momentum heading into 2025, even though they could be in a position to draft Travis Hunter. I feel like with Carolina, you do want to build those wins. You do want to build that pedigree. So I'm going to pick the Panthers here. Next game, the NFC West, after Seattle's loss and Bay has that team playing right at the New York Jets, who they did get a win last week, but it's going to feel like for this game, it is going to be a close game. I just feel like the Rams are going to pull away with. They are the better team. But I feel like with it being in New York, them having to travel across the country, you do got to consider that. I could definitely see this game being close throughout, but the Rams ultimately do pull away with the win. Next game here, big game in the NFC win. Washington kind of looking for that big win to really cement their playoff hopes. And I'm going to say this too. I really feel like this could be one of those shocker weeks. I know I've said that several times and it necessarily hasn't hit, but you just get the feeling that this could be one of those shocker weeks. Washington has gotten back on track. They are playing better after they really so ultimately I feel like it's going to be a very close game, and feel like with Sirianni and Hurts this time of year, they suffer that one. Expect them to lose to Saquon, even though he's been having a great year. He really wasn't that involved again. Obviously, the first time they played each other, he was really the icing on the cake, but it's hard to beat a team twice. And I got to give this to Washington. I feel like that I'm going to say this is game of the week. I feel like this is going to be that game we look back on and say this was really a good game. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Washington here to pull off the win. Next game here, matchup in the AFC North, the Bengals trying to keep their very slim playoff hopes alive against the Browns. And there's really not much of an explanation I think you need to use. Cincinnati is hot, red hot. Cleveland doesn't know who their quarterback is. The win pretty easily. The offense goes to work, does what they need to do, and they get the win. Next game here in the AFC South, another one of those games where you just kind of, go a little when you look at 6-8 Indianapolis. The Colts playoff hopes virtually dead. After the loss to Denver, they would need a lot to go right to have a chance. But I do feel like you got to give them the win here, just because they do feel like the better team. They are at home. And I do feel like Indianapolis has been up and down, but I do feel like you got to give credit where credit is due. They are, finding ways to really right the ship, and I think uncertainty with the quarterback position. So I do got to go ahead and give the Colts the win. Name in the NFC, I would say 12-2 Minnesota. Playoff picture. This is kind of a must win for them. And Minnesota, very big opportunity to really, I think, stay afloat at the top of the NFC. Now it's going to be a tough game. I don't see Seattle going away with this easily, and I did see that Geno Smith is going to practice. I would assume he tries to play. But the thing with Minnesota is if they can generate pressure on Geno, that could create a lot of troubles. And I feel like that is what could end up happening. Maybe they try to replicate some of what Green Bay did. But ultimately, I got to give this one to Minnesota. I just feel like they're going to go in there. And, they're going to – I feel like it's going to be a closer game, but I feel like they're going to go in there and they are going to pull it off and get the win. Next game here. This game, actually, funny enough, it just got flexed yesterday to 425, which is very much interesting. The Buffalo Bills and the Patriots. Obviously, Buffalo in a race for the top seed in the AFC. Obviously, they hope Kansas City can lose a few and they can keep track. Buffalo's a better team. I'm actually going to say this is lock of the week. I think the Bills get this done pretty easily and take care of the Patriots. Next game, Jacksonville at Las Vegas. You want to talk about a tank bowl? This might be it. Very tough game to predict. I was actually going to pick Vegas, really kind of up until you think about it. And I know you don't want to associate tanking with any team, but you got to be honest. Vegas, they are tanking for Shedeur, tanking for Cam Ward. One of them, probably Shedeur, because of the name recognition alone. But night game, I got to give Jacksonville the win. I don't know what Jacksonville can take. They got their quarterback. That's the thing with Jacksonville. You look at their record and you say, where has it gone wrong? And they are one of the toughest teams to really figure out where it's going wrong, just from looking at the standpoint if you aren't too deeply involved with the Jaguars versus the Raiders. And then San Francisco at Miami. Season for both teams, so especially the Niners. I feel like you got to take a look at this thing and you got to call a spade for a spade. These two teams are not having a good year, but San Francisco is win now and then. They're a very up and down team, and I feel like this is just a week they're going to come out and get a win. Obviously, I just feel like Miami's going to come out, get a win, kind of, you hate to say it, but rub a little. It's been a tough year, and I don't think this changes anything regardless for him, but I'm going to pick Miami to win. Sunday Night Football, and this is going to be a I'm gonna be rooting for the Cowboys. I don't say that often, but I'm gonna be rooting for the Cowboys here. But I can absolutely I feel like everyone is gonna pick Tampa to win this game, and I can understand why. Tampa's the hot the Chargers. Mike Evans is back. He's on a quest for 1,000 yards. Bucky Irvin quest for 1,000 yards. But the one thing with Dallas, is that, and maybe it's just me trying to maintain a little bit of hope, but Dallas has proven that they can mess a team's mojo up. They kind of did with Washington, and it just feels like late in the year, Dallas, they get these wins that, it's kind of hard to understand, and kind of, they get a win with Mike McCarthy, nothing else, try to spoil someone's season. And this feels like an opportunity to do that. Out of hand, then they could keep it competitive and close and ultimately come away with the victory, which I think will happen. I do. I think Tampa, obviously, they're going to come in, and you never want to say they're going to come in thinking it's an easy win, but obviously riding high, it does feel like Tampa is due to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. Wrapping it all up on Monday night, the Saints at the Packers in Lambeau Field. I don't know what the weather is going to be like, but I know it's going to be ugly, and the Saints are self-explanatory. The Packers are miles better. The Saints are going to out there. Anyways, with that being said, obviously, Week 16, we are coming down to the it's been an exciting season, and we're going to have an exciting final few weeks. So with that being said, I will